Hello, musketeers and malcontents. My name is TBSkyen, and Knights of Guinevere is pretty good. If you've not heard of it, it's the pilot episode of a new animated show helmed by the creator of The Owl House, Dana Terrace. The pilot is available for free on YouTube, so if you haven't watched it yet, I don't know what you're doing here. Go watch it. Like I said, it's good. It's less than half an hour long. This video will make a lot more sense once you've seen it, and I am going to be spoiling the whole thing. You might as well. Have you done it? Good. Then let's start with some context. Because the narrative around Knights of Guinevere has a little bit of a thorny bramble to it. The Owl House was a much beloved show with a lot of devoted fans, but it was also effectively cancelled after only 2 seasons, ending on a rather stark cliffhanger. Disney eventually, and reportedly somewhat begrudgingly, greenlit an abridged and rather shortened 3rd season to allow the show to very hurriedly try to rush through wrapping up its storylines, which, as you can imagine, led to somewhat compromised results. Showrunner Dana Terrace was reasonably public with her bitter feelings about that cancellation, and this, along with unsubstantiated fan rumors about hostile and direct sabotage of the Owl House by Disney, became a key piece of context for Knights of Guinevere. When that show was given a 40-second teaser that opens with a beautiful princess Snow White posing amid a throng of disgustingly adorable cartoon animals, which then cross-cuts to genuinely kind of harrowing footage of apparently that same princess screaming and spasming on a cybernetic operating table with blood everywhere, well, it seemed pretty clear that the Knights of Guinevere was going to be, at least in part, about Disney and Disney princesses and the Disney brands. The vibe and narrative that emerged around the show very, very quickly settled on the idea that this was going to be an angry raised finger lifted high at the House of Mouse. And now that the pilot is out, well, yeah, it definitely is that, but it's also not just that. There are other things going on here. Besides the venom aimed at the corporation, the show is also about, and very empathetic towards, the love of Disney. It's about people who saw the beauty and craftsmanship of Disney movies and fell in love with the stories and the magic, and the people who were taken in by that. The people who grew up loving Disney princesses and for whom those stories were a light through the dark times, and who eventually have to deal with the bitter realization that the corporation that created all of that magic sees them as little more than exploitable human fodder. So the thesis of the show, I think, isn't necessarily as simple as Disney is bad and loving Disney is stupid. Rather, it feels like it's about the bitterness of loving something like Disney genuinely and having that love used against you. And it also feels like it is in no small part about trying to reclaim and steal back the things you love from the parasites that prey on it. Now, I'm not going to be deep diving into story analysis for the show, but if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. This is just all necessary context for the thing that I actually want to talk about, which is the character design, because this show has some of the best character design that I have seen in a very long time. In a lot of modern character design, there is, and has more or less always been, a race to the lowest common denominator. Design has a tendency to default to beauty, to appeal to frictionless visual pleasure. Especially as the budget of a piece of entertainment goes up, moneyed interests will interfere to ensure the optimization of profit potential. Everything is calculated to appeal to as broad of an audience as possible, often by ruthlessly removing every feature and detail that could possibly turn away any potential customer. One very visible manifestation of this tendency is same-face syndrome, where especially, although not exclusively, female characters have a tendency to repeat the same smooth, featureless, perfectly symmetrical facial structures over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Noses are tiny, as close to invisible as possible, eyebrows are plucked perfect, skin is flawless, and the eyes are as big as possible. In this design paradigm, nobody has acne scars, nobody has unsightly moles or wrinkles, nobody is beady-eyed or bushy-browed, nobody has psoriasis or blackheads, nobody is asymmetrical or greasy. It's not just that nobody is ugly as a whole, it's that everything that could possibly be conceived of as less than beautiful, less than appealing, is methodically and deliberately wiped away from existence to maximize the value of the asset. As writer Raquel S. Benedict puts it in her excellent essay, Everyone is Beautiful and No One is Horny,
actors are more physically perfect than ever. Impossibly lean, shockingly muscular, with magnificently coiffed hair, high cheekbones, impeccable surgical enhancements, and flawless skin. all displayed in form-fitting superhero costumes with the obligatory shirtless scene thrown in to show off shredded abs and rippling pecs. Even background extras are good looking, or at least inoffensively bland. No one is ugly, no one is really fat, everyone is beautiful. And yet, no one is horny. Even when they have sex, no one is horny. No one is attracted to anyone else. No one is hungry for anyone else. The body is no longer a holistic system. It is not the vehicle through which we experience joy and pleasure. It is not home to live in and be happy. It is a collection of features: six-pack, thigh gap, cum gutters, and these features exist not to make our lives more comfortable, but to increase the value of our assets.
It all leads to a style of design which, in my view, is quite condescending to the audience. It is ultimately based on the assumption that you, unsophisticated, stupid monkey that you are, cannot be convinced to fully engage with anything or pay money for anything except that which dangles the beautiful in front of your eyes, like keys before a toddler. And to be fair, there are definitely people in the world who are willing to validate that sentiment, who see pathetic self-debasement before commercialism as a way to virtue signal to their in-group. Also, in fairness, the strategy does work on a commercial level. Designing for appeal appeals, it sells. And to people who think of sales and profits as the purpose of art, not just the means by which you acquire the funds to keep creating art, that is all the justification that is needed to accelerate the race to the bottom forever. Now, none of this is to say that there's anything wrong with enjoying beauty. Beauty is, by nature, quite enjoyable, and taking pleasure in it obviously doesn't make you stupid or evil. That would be silly to say. My point is that beauty, appeal, coolness, sexiness, these things are just tools, a small set of tools from a very big toolbox. As human beings, we have the capacity to derive joy and meaning from everything, not just from beauty, not just from appeal. And we deserve art that uses all of the tools at its disposal, not just the popular ones, and not just the most commercially viable ones. Which brings us back from all of this high-minded nonsense to Disney and the Knights of Guinevere, because Knights of Guinevere is in no small part about all of this. In the opening sequence of the show, as the Guinevere bot jumps off a platform trailing her own guts/metaphorical umbilical cord, the screen hard cuts to a series of images depicting the horror of her creation. The first image is this, a sketch of her face with red notes and corrections penciled in by, presumably, Mr. Definitely Not Walt Disney Orville Park. So we have notes like, no wrinkles, underlined twice, eye is not symmetrical, please fix, center the pupil and keep it dilated because it's more appealing, and this point feels too violent, let's brainstorm. The point in question that feels too violent is a downwards pointing curl in Guinevere's hair, and indeed, when we see the finished android, that sharp downwards point is now an upwards pointing, softer curl. Now, exactly how or why a downwards pointing curl is supposed to be too violent is never really explained, but that of course is the point. The design process that creates Guinevere is obsessed with removing from the character literally anything that could conceivably be off-putting to literally anyone. From that sketch, we cut to a gory, blood-spattered frame of her face split half open, electrodes and motors and mechanisms on display with her skin peeled back. And from that, we then cut to a softly airbrushed to within an inch of its life promotional poster of her face. This face is notably softer, rounder, and smoother than the real Guinevere android posing in front of it, and then we cut from that to the yet even more softened, even more rounded, and even more saccharine, adorable direct-to-video cash-in sequel. Then we hop to a Little Mermaid riff with a Frozen-era movie title, then ads, then costumes for little girls, then the inevitable live-action remake that no one asked for, and so on, and so on. Gwen's face in this world is everywhere, and it is on everything. Her hair-bun silhouette is the iconography of dystopia. Gwen's character design, thus, is central to the narrative. What she looks like, how her body is treated, how she is presented, and how she is seen, these are thematic pillars of what the show is trying to talk about. The design process that created her is the design process that created the world. When I say that Knights of Guinevere has amazing character design, this is the reason why. More than almost any other show I can think of, this show is about character design, is interrogating character design, asking questions about character design, and that is catnip to freaks like me. To start with, I want to talk about a couple of secondary characters that aren't central to the plot necessarily, but who I think are central to the themes, and we will start with Orville Park, who is Walt Disney. Now, there may turn out to be more to him eventually than a transparently obvious Walt Disney stand-in. I have my suspicions about where the plot might be going, but for the purposes of the pilot, Walt Disney is the role he plays. This is most obviously on display when Frankie is remembering/hallucinating an old Park Planet promotional video, wherein Orville, impeccably voiced by Sung-Won Cho, delivers the exact kind of friendly, cheerful, good old Uncle Walt performance that Disney himself famously employed in his many TV appearances.
Oh, why hello. Didn't notice you there. Come closer. Meet some very good friends of mine. This is Guinevere. And Guinevere. And yes, this is Guinevere as well.
Now, another of our World Fair exhibits that features the audio animatronics is the Carousel Theater of Progress. Well, how do you do?
So between that and his fuzzy little old-timey pencil mustache, this is a classic Mr. Alt Disney trope. He is Walt Disney, he's obviously Walt Disney, but where Walt Disney was quite lanky and skinny, Orville is thick and stocky. Where Disney liked to wear his hair slicked back and under control, Orville's hair is loose and falling from his side part. And where Disney, usually dressed fairly conservative in black, gray, and brown suits, Orville is decked out in bright imperial purple with star-shaped golden buttons, an open jacket over a waistcoat, and fancy white loafers. He's almost dressed more like a playboy or a circus ringmaster than the respectable industry patriarch that Walt liked to affect. And those contrasts are interesting. Disney thought of himself as a futurist, a visionary, an industrialist. He was consumed to his dying day with the thought of building a genuine utopia, his experimental prototype community of tomorrow, now known as Epcot. His thoughts and ambitions were very much about changing and improving the world for all the people living in it. He wanted to build a better tomorrow and imagine a brighter future. It was a future in the iron grip of his monomaniacal obsession with total control. Of course, it was never going to work, and if it had worked, it would have been horrible. There's a reason he is one of the inspirations for the main villain of BioShock. But Disney was desperate to be more than just the cartoons guy, more than the theme parks guy, more than the hopes and dreams guy. He wanted a grander and much more, at least in his mind, statesman-like legacy. And as far as we see of Orville in the pilot, that's not really who he is. Orville is obsessed with the park above all else, and with his daughter, Olivia. He looks inwards. He is insular, and seems much more interested in cocooning his world away from reality, rather than expanding his vision out into it. And this might be why there is such a notable contrast between his design and Walt Disney's actual look. Orville is a Walt Disney, but he's not exactly Walt Disney. He is the dream factory Walt Disney, the hopes and dreams Walt Disney, the cartoons guy, the parks guy, the nostalgia salesman. He is an embodiment of the obsession with perfection and total control of a personal playground to serve the personal needs of his personal ego. And that leads us on naturally to the other character design I want to talk about in this section, which is Park Planet. Because again, much like Orville is Walt Disney, Park Planet is Disneyland. It is this impossibly ornate magical kingdom of light and colors, full of exotic buildings and star-crested spires and theme park rides and attractions. It is a fantasy world where beautiful princesses march on parade surrounded by adorable animals, where there are fireworks every night and something amazing around every corner. Park Planet is dense and saturated. Every square inch that is in the path is crammed full of towers and spires and buildings and attractions. You cannot see 5 feet ahead of you without a coaster or a carousel or a giant seashell or a teacup or a sun and moon and stars absolutely crowding out your vision. And on the horizon, there are always the towering cranes, constantly engaged in the work of expanding and filling in the park with more and more and more. And the interesting thing is that really wouldn't fly in a Disney park. Or, well, that's changing in recent years as the company profit maximizes by cramming more rides and IPs into their parks, but Disneyland, especially, and the Disney parks in general, are created with an obsessive control of sightlines and immersion. When you are going through Frontierland, you are not supposed to see Tomorrowland on the horizon, and when you are in New Orleans Square, you are not supposed to catch sight of any part of Toontown. Imagineers at Disney extensively control what you can and cannot see from any given angle, prioritizing clean and consistent aesthetics, open skies, and thematic cohesion, using everything from forced perspective to literally building false horizons in the park, rather than let a thematically inappropriate building clutter the experience. Disney parks, and especially the original Disneyland, also love nature. Nature is not only a huge part of the theming of many iconic rides and landmarks, the parks are also full of trees and flowers, rivers and lakes, mountains, hills, and gardens. By contrast, in Park World, there is not a tree or flower or plant in sight, or any hills or rivers or any landscaping at all. The park is a flat circle whose space is taken up by all attractions, all rides, all constructions. So, much like Orville, the park is a Disneyland, but it's not exactly Disneyland, and again, that contrast feels meaningful. I think the way that the park is designed says something about its creator. It reflects Orville and what he wants and the vision that he has for the world, just as the real-life Disneyland, and especially Epcot, reflected Walt Disney's utopian fantasies of benevolent dictatorial industrialism. Park Planet's design seemingly represents Orville's determination to engineer a fantasy world that can replace all of reality. A place so dreamlike, so glittery, so full of light and sound and sensation and novelty, so dense with sheer distraction that the real world simply cannot exist there. No trees, no landscape, no animals that aren't animatronic, no nature. A park so magical and transcendent that it can wipe away whatever trauma he is obsessively trying to make Olivia forget. There's one more thing about the floating park's design, by the way. It is a huge floating circle, a half-sphere suspended above the earth. And below it, as we see in this establishing shot where Frankie and Sparky are sailing their trawler, the ocean has an edge that looks suspiciously smooth and circular, almost as though a huge volume of the earth was simply scooped out and lifted away, leaving only a poisoned ocean behind as dumping ground for the trash and refuse of the park floating above. The park is a fantasy built to replace reality, and it is doing that by consuming reality, by literally eating the earth. It is a parasite that sells people the opportunity to escape from a poisoned world, which the park itself is responsible for poisoning. So, Orville isn't quite Disney, and Park Planet isn't quite Disneyland. They are designed with notable contrasts to their real-life counterparts. But that contrast, I think, isn't there to separate them from their real-life inspirations. It is there to sharpen the critique of them. The Walt Disney Corporation today earns the actual majority of its revenue from its parks and its cruises, and the entertainment, the media that the corporation produces, is increasingly used mostly in the business as a strategy to generate IP that can be used to flavor theme park and cruise experiences. So even in the real world, art is merely a means to feed the insatiable hunger of the park. Contrast, as we've just talked about, is an effective tool in a character designer's arsenal. Conspicuous differences between designs and characters inform how they are to be understood and help tell the story of the world the characters inhabit, as well as the lives they lead. For example, Olivia spends her life surrounded by her hordes of toys and androids, and they are all immaculate. Creepy, yes, but immaculate, perfectly formed, clean, and smooth in their function. Frankie and Andy also have robot toys in their lives, but the ones they interact with range from decapitated heads bleeding from their eyeballs and peeling off their own skin, to Frankenstein creations cobbled together from whatever scraps they can get their hands on. Even absent any other context, this contrast alone tells us a story about the social class and the conditions that these characters exist within. On a similar level, Olivia is perfect. She is perfectly dressed, perfectly poised, with perfect skin and perfect eyes and perfect hair, skinny and pretty and adorable, almost like a doll herself. She also does show up aged and shriveled and weak, because no matter how perfect of a fantasy Park Planet is, nothing can abet the ravages of time, but I'm talking about her youthful appearances here. As a design, she herself is almost a Disney princess, if not for the devil or perhaps dragon horns in her costume and the constant shadow over her eyes. Frankie and Andy, on the other hand, are... well, they're not Disney princesses. Andy is long and gangly, thin and flat. Her hair is a scrappy mess, her eyes are sunken with lines and dark bags and small pupils, and she has asymmetrical moles on her face. In other words, almost everything about her is the kind of thing that would have gotten red lines and a request to please fix in Guinevere's design process. Frankie, for her part, is just as much of a mess as Andy, with her torn overalls and dirty steel-tipped boots, and teeth missing from her mouth. She's got thick, heavy black eyebrows and a bumpy, crescent nose ridge, something which Disney princesses generally are allergic to. On top of that, she's a brick house, thick and muscled, physically powerful, and the exact opposite of acrobatic or petite. She's also butch in her presentation, or soft butch, possibly? I'll leave it to the lesbians to place her correctly on that spectrum, but the point is, Frankie's divergence from classical femininity is very much in contrast to how Olivia is presented, and even more in contrast to how Guinevere is presented. So, again, even absent other context, just from the designs here, we can see that Frankie and Andy live in a different world than that which produced Olivia and Guinevere, and we can see that their designs are fundamentally contrary to the way that Park Planet constructs what is beautiful and what is desirable. Frankie and Andy live lives that have left marks on them: exhaustion, stress, injury, and lack of time and resources to fix their clothes or fix their hair or get dental care for that matter. The two of them are, in a certain narrow point of view, ugly. Unfeminine, asymmetrical, spots on their skin, crooked nose ridge, messy hair, missing teeth. They do not live up to the standards of conventional beauty, certainly not the way that Olivia and Guinevere do. And even if they wanted to, the condition of the lives that they lead would not allow them to. An especially interesting contrast is in the eyes. Olivia has the big, appealing Disney princess eyes, especially as a child, but she has no light in them. The opening scene makes a point of this. Olivia's eyes light up with Orville's fireworks and the light of the park. Briefly, but there's no inner glow. Her eyes can reflect her environment, but they do not shine on their own. Now, that's normal. Eyes don't glow in real life, they reflect, but in animation, blank and unhighlighted eyes is often used as a shorthand for a character who has lost their inner light, or who is otherwise dissociating or not present in the moment. The deactivated Guinevere that Olivia works on her bed has no light in her eyes, for example, and neither does Sparky. That old cynic's eyes are also missing the shine. Frankie, though, Frankie's eyes are always shining, and they're big and round with huge irises and large pupils, the visual signifiers of childish idealism and innocence, and indeed the sort of eyes that you would put on a Disney princess. Even in shadow and in darkness where there really is no light to reflect, Frankie's eyes always shine. And so do Andy's eyes, by the way. Not as much, not as bright or as saturated, and they are smaller eyes, but they do shine. Now, eye shine is also a matter of animation clarity. Sometimes animators will give characters shiny eyes in dark scenes just to make it more clear to the audience where they're looking and how their eyes are moving. That's an important part of facial gesture, but it seems to me that Frankie's eyes being so noticeably brighter and lighter than other characters is a deliberate and meaningful choice here, especially given what sight and seeing means to her. Because Frankie regularly hallucinates. She sees her cobbled-together scrap toys as perfect replicas of Guinevere's animal mascots. She sees her old broken TV static as glitzy commercials from her childhood, and the dark, dingy house she shares with Andy shows up as bright and pastel colorful to her. And she sees the Guinevere bot, the broken, f***ed-up, fished out from the bottom of the ocean Guinevere bot, as Princess Guinevere, beautiful, immaculate, and perfect. And the Guinevere bot, in turn, by the way, also seems to perceive reality through a little bit of a filter. When we are put in the perspective of the Guinevere bot at the end of the pilot, just as Frankie sees Guinevere as the perfect space princess, the bot seems to see Frankie and Andy as small children, the children she met all those years ago, and she perceives the blood-soaked repair room where she's stuck as a bright sunny day outside. Guinevere, seeing the world like that, is probably part of her programming as a servile slave droid and property of the park, right? So if Frankie, who shares with Guinevere the design feature of big, bright, shiny eyes, also sees the world through a filter, well, it brings up an unhappy possibility, doesn't it? Maybe Frankie's hallucinations are also an extension of the way that the park keeps control over its property by changing its perception. Frankie keeps insisting that she wants a job working for the park, no matter how much everyone else around her tells her that that's a bad idea, because the park has incepted that idea into her. They have changed how she sees things. Frankie is loyal to her dreams, to the detriment of her reality. On the other hand, though, maybe it's not quite that bleak, actually. See, Olivia and Frankie make a really interesting pair in terms of contrast. They are both obsessed with Guinevere, and specifically they are obsessed with fixing her. They both live in dream worlds, Frankie in her fantasies and Olivia in her plush-filled tower, and they are both marked by the neglect and abuse of father figures who in their own head believe that they mean well. Frankie is missing her teeth because of Sparky's violence, and Olivia's eyes are dead because of something Orville did. They have a lot in common, but they are also opposites, mirrors of each other. Olivia is frail and physically weak. Frankie is built like a tank and full of vigor. Olivia is rich and privileged, while Frankie is poor and marginalized. And again, Frankie's eyes shine while Olivia's are flat and dead. So the two of them seem to be mirrors, one another's shadow, two sides of a coin, and one can interpret their designs through that specific lens. Olivia is obsessed with fixing Guinevere, constantly tinkering and tearing her apart and reassembling her, because Olivia feels that Guinevere is flawed, imperfect. She looks at Guinevere and all she sees are the red lines and circles, the problems to be fixed. And if she can only fix all of them, if she can only make her perfect, then maybe Guinevere will stop trying to escape and run away, and then the world will be right. The hole in her heart, which Orville couldn't fill with a planet's worth of theme parks, will finally be closed, and Olivia can feel right again. Guinevere is flawed. Guinevere is wrong. Guinevere is imperfect. Guinevere is the problem. Guinevere is a thing that must be possessed, and she's a thing that must be controlled. And then Frankie is the opposite of that. To Frankie, Guinevere is perfect. Guinevere is the princess, the angel, the vision she sees when she closes her eyes, and sometimes even when they're open. That up skeletal dumpster droid from the bottom of the ocean, with its missing eye and limbs and disaster mohawk and permanent crooked grin, well, it's Guinevere, so it's perfect. Does it need to be fixed up a little bit? Yeah, sure, but she doesn't need to be fixed in order to change her. Nothing about her needs to change. She just needs restoration and protection. Olivia, with her horns and her tower and her piles and piles of riches, is the dragon that wants the princess, to imprison her, to own her, to consume her, to sustain herself. And Frankie is the knight, brave, selfless, and devoted, whose only wish is to see her lady restored and happy, who wants nothing from Guinevere except her favor and a kind smile and a gentle touch of comfort, who just wants to help her. Olivia is designed like a princess, but she's broken inside. A lifetime of dreams and fantasies has trapped her in an endless, stagnant childhood without ever a chance to grow or to heal. Her body has been protected, but her soul has been strangled. Frankie is the literal opposite of a princess, butch and tough and damaged and messy. Her body has been hurt, but her soul has been saved by the dreams and fantasies that she carries with her like a light through the darkness. One woman smothered by dreams, and another uplifted by them. At least, that's one way to interpret them and make sense of their designs. Now, if I were to speculate, I suspect that Frankie's delusions, her hallucinations, are going to be examined in the show, and they're not going to turn out to be good exactly, at least not in an uncomplicated way. She puts herself and others in tremendous danger over those dreams. Andy ends up with a shattered arm because of them. However bright and optimistic and beautiful Frankie's visions are, they are still a way to escape reality rather than to deal with it. She sees Guinevere as a perfect princess, but she sees Guinevere as the perfect princess that the park designed her to be. And is that quite the same thing as seeing Guinevere as a person? I'm not so sure. Guinevere is the space princess. She is the ideals of Park Planet made manifest. She's a being of dreams. She is a fantasy made real. anything you can think of, any dream you can have, there is a Gwen who will be that dream for you. Ballerina, mermaid, racing driver, inventor, ragdoll. There are as many Gwens as there are stars in the sky. And you can be just like her with this costume, this mug, this doll, this t-shirt. Visit Park Planet and she will know you and she will remember you. She will be your friend and she will love you. Gwen, in short, is perfect. Perfectly beautiful, perfectly sweet, perfectly relatable, perfectly humble. Perfect skin, perfect nose, perfect brows, cheeks, lips, and weight. Perfectly skinny, with a perfect waist, and a perfect pair of breasts. Hey, hang on, perfect breasts? What the Oh, sorry, I was looking at completely the wrong notes here. That's not correct at all. Let me find the right script. It's around here. Guinevere is a piece of trash, a scrapped hunk of junk and metal dragged up from the bottom of the sea. She is a horrifying inhuman thing, a walking skeleton of something that only pretends to be beautiful. She's missing her eye, missing her arm, her foot, her finger, and her internal joints and mechanical bolts are exposed to the open air like she's a half-rotten corpse. Her skin is blotchy and miscolored and swollen, and her mouth is pulled into a wide, crooked grin by wires hooked into her cheeks. She is pollution, the discarded garbage of the parasite Park Planet dumped on the world below out of spite. She's a parody of life, an insult to it, really. A useless toy with no place in the world except the scrap heap or the rancid bedroom of some rancid pervert who'll pay whatever it takes to have her restored to a usable state. Wait, no, hang on. This doesn't seem right either. Rancid pervert? Who wrote this? You know what? Okay, screw the notes. Let's just, Guinevere is, well, a doll, fundamentally. That's what her design is. She's a mechanical contraption made in a human shape, and people can then use that contraption to make anything of her that they want. To the people of the world, she's Princess Guinevere, or ballerina, racer, mermaid, and so on. She's the mascot of Park Planet, and she's a beloved or beloathed icon of pop culture. To Sparky, Guinevere is a piece of junk. Valuable junk, but nothing more than junk. Another piece of shit dumped on the world from the theme park parasites that he hates. To Frankie, she's perfection. An ideal, the very avatar of beauty and grace and safety. She is the person that makes the world okay. And to Olivia, she is... well, it's not 100% exactly clear what's going on there, but to Olivia, she is an object of obsession. She is the thing that Olivia has to fix to somehow make her world feel right again. Some kind of non-sexual fetish object to which she has attached her whole sense of comfort and self. Guinevere is, in short, a doll. She is whatever people make of her. She is whatever costume she's made to wear, whether that's a dress or a racing suit, a tutu or a mermaid's tail, or human skin with a perfect pair of tits. Which, by the way, let's talk about that, because I've now intentionally been kind of gross about her body a few times, and I'm not doing that just to be edgy. I am making a point. Guinevere is the most sexualized character in the pilot, and in fact, the only explicitly sexualized character in the pilot, and it's very clearly on purpose. With her cleavage and the backless dress, with the seashell mermaid bra and her tiny waist and wide hips, Guinevere is deliberately designed by the Park Planet engineers to be beautiful and be sexy. Her bustiness is not the result of any natural growth or an accident of biology, and her cleavage isn't a fashion choice that she's making. The breasts are literally just an accessory, something that's attached to her for the same reason that they removed her wrinkles and dilated her pupils and turned that one little tuft of hair upwards because it was too violent. It's all about designing for appeal, making the character marketable, making her perfect. Even the live-action remake version of her, the girl boss princess who saves herself, is conspicuously busty with conspicuous cleavage. The very first Gwen we see is the doll that Olivia is working on her bed, and it has no breasts. As we can see on the official model sheet here, this doll is also shorter than the fully dressed Gwen, so besides that large detachable bust, the Guinevere costume also seems to include very high heels and significant padding on her hips. It all makes her look that much more adult in every sense of the word, but the real proportions of the doll are much more like those of a teenager, which makes the deliberate act in-universe of sexualizing her with the breasts and the dress and the padding feel rather sketchy and uncomfortable. And I think that's the point. You're supposed to consider what it means that Park Planet made the decision to have her look that way. So, if we interpret the costume that she's wearing as a kind of false self, a kind of enforced sexualized objectification, then if you strip away the costume, the cosmetics, the perfect face and hair, then surely that's when you get down to the real Gwen, right? The real person? Well, the thing is, even that is engineering. Even that is still design. This, however stripped of its surface characteristics it may be, is still part planet's doing. Every piece, every joint, every molecule, every choice in her creation was made by someone else to suit their agenda. And this is why I think Guinevere is the best and most engaging character design in the show, and honestly, one of the most interesting designs I have seen in animation in a very long time. In every iteration, every costume, all dressed up or broken down, her design forces the viewer to engage with the most important truth in all of design as a discipline. It looks the way it does because someone made it so. Design is never neutral. It is not ordained by God or the laws of physics. It doesn't materialize fully formed out of the platonic realm of ideas. Every character in a piece of media, every color, every line, every pixel, every physical feature, scrap of clothing, strand of hair, proportion, expression, for every single thing, this axiom is true. It looks the way it does because someone made it so. And once you know that, you have the opportunity to start questioning. Someone made it so what does that mean? Like, for example, Guinevere. Orville made her so. Why? All of this obsession with perfection, all these red lines, what does that mean? Frankie sees her as that perfect princess even when she doesn't actually look that way. Frankie is making her look that way, even if her own perception. So what does that mean? Dana Terrace designed all of these different looks for Guinevere and made a point of showing us all of them to compare them to one another. Dana Terrace made it so. So why? And what does it mean? I return to the opening scene a lot. Olivia pulls at Guinevere's guts right where an umbilical cord would be attached to a child, and it is that pain that triggers Guinevere to be born, kind of. She jumps from the platform, and as she falls, she looks kind of like a baby dropping from the womb. And so I interpret this to mean that thematically, in this moment, she is choosing to be born into the world, to sever the connection, to assert autonomy, to become a person. By the end of the pilot, Guinevere is ragged and broken and f***ed up, and she made herself so. Where every other look she has is the result of choices that other people made for and about her, this look is the result of choices she made for herself. Is it broken, dysfunctional, and frankly kind of ugly? Yeah, but when you weigh it all up, isn't this more her? Frankie and Andy end the episode by beginning the process of fixing Guinevere, but what would that mean? Presumably, they want to restore her to the shape of Princess Gwen, the Guinevere they know, who Frankie idolizes, but if Gwen could rebuild herself, what would she want to be? The show doesn't provide us any answers on that front, but this, I think, is absolutely core to the show itself and the themes that it's trying to explore. Guinevere's character design is at the heart of everything Knights of Guinevere seems to be saying. It is connected to Olivia's obsession, Frankie's fantasies, to Andy's ambitions. It's connected to Park Planet's tyranny, to the pollution, the blue lung disease. It is central to the critique the show is making of Disney and Disney princesses. Every theme and idea, every other character, all of it connects in some way, shape, or form to who Guinevere is, what she looks like, how people see her, and who made her that way. And when one character design can do all of that, that, my friends, is good character design. Knights of Guinevere is a really good-looking show. The folks at Glitch and Studio Mila have done an absolutely amazing job, both as a first-time 2D production for Glitch itself, and as a piece of independent 2D animation more broadly. This is fully up to par with the regular output of studios that work with many times the budget that they must have had access to. There's the occasional rough edge here and there, to be sure, but the world building, the visual design, the backgrounds, I could talk for an hour about the backgrounds. It's only a pilot, and any show can f*** up a promising start by dropping the ball on a full season. Making animation is hard, but this feels like a rare beast. This feels like a show which, is definitely trying to sell merchandise, and there's something darkly ironic about a show with this premise being dependent on the sale of pins and figurines for its funding, but it feels like a show that really, really has something on its mind, a message that it wants to reach for, and which it feels is vital. And it's not just the Disney Corporation, it feels like an interrogation of what it means to love genuine art produced by genuine artists when that art exists in the service of a soulless corporate parasite. I think this show is going to be about loving Disney things deeply, even when maybe you shouldn't. I think it's about trying to figure out what the to do with that love when both you and the people who actually create the things you love are stuck in a world where the corporation owns everything and you can't escape it. And that's not just Disney, that's everything. That's Netflix and Amazon and HBO and Warner Bros. And look at the logo in the top left corner of this website. I'm stuck making content for a corporation that's trying to drain us all dry like we're juice boxes. I don't expect Knights of Guinevere to have any answers to that problem, but insofar as there is a point to art, a big part of that point is to articulate the human condition in a way that somehow moves you. I'm a Disney kid. Those movies form part of the bedrock of my goddamn soul, whether I like it or not, and I have lived long enough to go through the heartbreak 1,000 times of seeing art I truly love violated by the corporations that hold the IP rights. So, it is a balm to the soul, to my soul at least, to see art that expresses that heartbreak and which is defiant in the face of it. I think I'm gonna need that feeling in the years that are to come. Don't f*** this up, Glitch. Anyway, that's a video, I guess. Believe me, I have more that I could say, that I want to say about Knights of Guinevere and its character design and its backgrounds, but sometimes you have to stop making the video and actually publish whatever the hell you're working on. If you want more of this from me, well, leave a comment, click a like button, spend those whatever they are, hype points on the video, or, best of all, share this video with someone who you think might enjoy it. That might be the thing that helps a YouTuber the most of anything, honestly. Anyway, the next video is going to be an Elden Ring episode, and after that, well, might have to return to Has-Been Hotel, actually, maybe. Well, it depends how the season plays out, we'll see. But if you want to see me spend 2 to 3 hours reacting, in large air quotes, to each episode, that's over on the Casual channel. Although, really, those are more like extended animation breakdowns, so, head over there if that's what you want. I also spent 3 hours gushing over Knights of Guinevere on that channel, and a solid 25% of that was just being delighted by the backgrounds. They are so good. Just please publish an art book. I really need it. By the way, on the off chance that Dana Terrace sees this video and watches it this far, I'm really not stacking the odds in my favor, but just on the off chance, if you want ever to talk about your character design process for any reason, doesn't even have to be for Knights of Guinevere, just in general, email me. Let's set something up. I wish to know your mind. Anyway, right. I have a Patreon, I have a merchandise store, there is a coffee, and you are very welcome to support the channel if you want to. There are some perks at the higher tiers. I will give you personal feedback on your own personal character design if you want, but I'm doing pretty okay these days. I am not scrambling for rent money every month anymore. So, if you have any extra money lying around that you don't need, then instead of sending it to me, please consider donating to Doctors Without Borders or the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. Even a single dollar can genuinely do a lot of good in their hands. And you can probably deduct it from your taxes at the very least, that if you check with your employer, they might do donation matching as well. You can have a lot more impact than you might think. Thank you very much for your time and your attention. Remember to be kind to one another. A better world is possible if we work for it. And may the tides of history wash gently over us all.